late in the budget process. I think we're at 24 meetings this week on budget.
I lost count.
Yeah, it's just been me, Ashley, Nate, Sarah, Jeremy, every single department head for hour-long meetings each on initial submissions. So I think we're in good shape on the submission area, getting much closer to a city manager recommendation, which is kind of what next week's process is going to be about, in addition to the budget book side of things. So got a big kind of organizational meeting today. I think we have one more budget meeting today, but then another organizational piece. Actually, yeah, Mike in Public Works, I think there's 4 or 5 budgets that are in there from him. So we've also had a big Mike meetings this week. So feeling good about that. It's a ton of work for this team, but compared to the 6 weeks of drop everything we do, go to the war room on the second floor, every day, all day, with desks lined up next to each other, it's actually comparatively much easier. So big thanks to the finance team and to all of our department heads for putting in a ton of work to get all the submissions in by the January 31st deadline, and this finance team for getting everything organized so that this week could be really productive. So happy with that. I do want to move quickly, especially so we can get to Amy and the school budget update, because
that's why I wanted to go kind of first to go ahead and get your.
So let's maybe just go straight to, if you're all right with that,
okay
Amy,
with
are
that?
you?
Whatever you guys want.
Yeah, that'd be great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Actually, we're good. I know you have an 8:30, so feel free to. Yep. We're good.
So last time I came before the council, one of the things we talked about was the other side of the budget, which is grant funding, because there needs to be an understanding by the public that our school budget isn't just covered by our local budget, it's also a lot of grant funding. And right now, with all of the angst around the rumors around Maine losing federal funding, it actually, timing-wise, works out quite nicely for me to talk a little bit about this. So what you have before you is the current grants and how much we receive in grant funding that supplements our budget. These things range anywhere from staffing and paying payroll and insurance of staffing to general supplies, professional development. So what you see on here are the different grants. ESEA are federal grants that everyone across the nation receives. So Title I, Title II, 4, and 5 all help cover quite a bit of our staffing and interventionist work around literacy and math. It also covers professional development. We get a chunk of this money based on our figures for economically disadvantaged. So this is a huge chunk of money and is honestly where a lot of the angst is coming from, that if Maine were to lose its federal funding, it's a lot of money for school districts to think about and plan for.
What is ESEA?
I'm gonna get it wrong, Steve, you would ask. Elementary, secondary, educational access, I wanna say.
Something close. Yeah.
So, close.
All right.
And then we get another significant amount of money for special education services for local, it's called local entitlement. That also covers staffing, supplies for all of our special education teachers related to special instruction. Does not go into our local budget. That is almost all entirely paid for by this federal grant. So things like pens and pencils for our teachers is not covered by local entitlement, but instructional tools, instructional curriculum that is specific towards special education is not currently in our local budget and hasn't been. It's 100% covered by local entitlement. Also professional development. Because we now also have 2 public pre-K classrooms, we received an additional allotment of local entitlement funding to help cover expenses for special education students in those 2 pre-K classrooms. So that's why you see that broken off separately. That's an additional chunk of money. Another federal grant that we received through what was COVID money is preventing student homelessness. That's also federal funding that we received for this year also. And then CTE is Career and Technical Education. That is grant funding for Hancock County Technical Center. So the first three that are on there are all federal funds. So Perkins Reserve, and CTE ARP, those are all grant funds through the federal government that help fund Hancock County Technical Center. That also is staffing, big pieces of equipment, professional development for CTE staff to ensure their programs stay nationally certified. All of those things are captured through those first three grants. The bottom three are all state-funded grants, either special allocations through the governor's budget or overflow of funding that they allocated for that through workforce ready types of things. Adult education, the first two are state-funded. MCCA is Maine College and Career Access, again, supplemental things to the budget. SMW is Strengthen Maine's Workforce. So as you know, over the last several years, people have really tried to amp up workforce readiness. And so adult education programs have received additional state allocations towards those means. So those first two things are for local workforce and college access. And then the last allocation that you'll see for about $16,000 is federal, and that's for adult ed and family literacy, to help bolster family literacy initiatives. And then last but not least on here is Teach with Tech. That's a grant we applied for and received through state funding for technology within our K-8 and high school. So this kind of gives you a picture. It's a lot of money that helps offset our local budget. And so right now, we have been told as a Superintendent's Association not to sound the alarm and put all of this into local budgets, so we have not done that. So when we come to you in a couple of weeks, we do not have these things put in our local budget. We continue to have them planned for FY ~26. But if anything changes in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna have to do some drastic reconfiguration, because this is probably about 10 or more staff members that are in here that are critical to the success of our school and critical curriculum and professional development for our staff. So we are having conversations. I meet weekly. I'm the Hancock County rep for the Legislative Committee, which helps inform and perform testimony for different education bills that are coming up in this next legislative session. And we are talking about this all the time, as well as talking about what would be the financial implications for some of the legislation that is being proposed that have a direct impact on our budget development. So we are talking about that. But I thought it was important for you to see the breakdown, federal versus state, and how much is supplemented. We also are in process right now of applying for 2 different grants for next year, one of which would bring a comprehensive after-school program to the Ellsworth area. It's a very competitive grant, but it would, we believe, really change wraparound services for Ellsworth students. So we're working really hard to apply for that. And then we are also working to apply for a RUS grant. Like our facilities, we have not done a good job historically planning for instructional technology upgrades in classrooms. So standardizing the equipment that we have in every single classroom has not been touched in quite a while. So we're looking at ways to offset costs for that, but those are 2 significant needs that we see for the school department that we're trying to acquire some grant funding for to help supplement. Questions about the grant side before I move on?
So those, the 2 new grants you're going for, those are both federal?
Yeah. Yep.
And do you have a sense of what percentage the federal dollars are total to what, the total school?
I haven't looked at that yet. I can certainly bring that when we present the full budget and talk about that, but no, I hadn't done that calculation.
You've got plenty going on, so.
Yeah,
Just the federal grants, I didn't add in the state, but it was 1,143,000, so.
Yeah,
it's-
1.1, yeah.
Yeah.
it's a big chunk. And so I'll certainly bring that. The other piece that's really, I talked about this last budget cycle, will again. Our cost per pupil in comparison to other Hancock County districts were much, much lower. And even offsetting this to that, we still continue to run below that. And so even though we've had dramatic increases over the last couple of years, we still, looking at this year's data, we're still behind per pupil in our spending for education. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth when we do our budget presentation. The other big issue that I wanted to talk to you about today, because it does dramatically affect the FY26 budget, is we really need to start making some decisions about our track. And I'm still unclear about who's going to take the lead and how this is going to work, because we've talked about it for 2 years, we're now at DEFCON 5. We're hosting one track meet this spring, and it's going to be by the skin of our teeth that we get away with it. We now are ineligible to host championships. The track is dangerous, and we are going to have to this spring probably shut down specific parts and lanes of it. And our lights are now going to be really unsafe, which affects soccer in the fall. But it doesn't just affect that. Our taxpayers do use it. And so we really need to talk about how we're going to and what our commitment is to fixing it or not. We currently have a plan for trying to fix the lighting in the FY26 budget. We're unclear if the total fiscal responsibility of that is ours or not. We certainly don't use it all the time. But right now, we do have a plan for it in our budget. And that's going to be a significant expense. We're looking at about $300,000. We do have a reserve account that was established prior to me of about $100,000 that is earmarked specifically for lights at the track. And then we have a couple of other ideas for how to fund it. But that doesn't solve the problem of the track. The total project between the resurfacing of the track and the light poles is probably going to be over $1 million. And we're getting to a point now where scheduling the track work, you're at a year wait list. So even if we decided today, go ahead and schedule the surfacing of the track, it would be this time next year before we'd even get on the books for the work to get done, which is your FY27 budget. But it is a year out, and the longer we wait, the more expensive it is going to get. I know that the rec committee talked about it the other day and asked my athletic director a lot of questions about it. But there was no clear guidance out of that committee, nor would there be, about funding of that and what to do about it. So the track is not at a place where we can resurface it. It's going to have to be completely dug up and recreated, which is part of the problem of the expensiveness of it. And in doing that, you're going to rip up the soccer field and end up having to redo the field. And then the lights are a separate component of the project. Our proposal would look at going into a phase 2 with EMC. If you recall, last year we did a TELP for a phase 1 project with EMC, which redid a roof project at the high school, lights at the high school, lights throughout our district went LED for energy efficiency savings. We did heat pump work. We did a lot of things and accomplished a lot, and that project is now about 98% done. And we're thrilled about that because it did help us with our facilities. EMC is presenting to my facilities committee on Monday a Phase 2 proposal, which is what we had planned on for a facilities long-term plan. And in that could be the light project at the track. Because of the energy efficiency savings, that could all be lumped together. But I kind of need some direction from both the school board and the city. Is this something we want to tackle? Are we moving forward? Do we want to do the lights now? Continue to talk about the track? Do we want to do a third? What should we do and where should we go? We're kind of at an impasse.
Question, do you know the life expectancy of a new track?
I don't, Patrick. Josh probably does. He's off today. Otherwise, he'd be here.
I asked because possibility of bonding to pay for it, if we're talking about an asset that has a 10-year life expectancy, bonding to pay for the track, it's similar to other infrastructure that we do bonding for, so that
Yeah.
may be an option.
Yeah, I think, the VERC's still coming out for our side of things, but we don't have any substantial, large capital investments in the city side of things. To me, the track, to your point, Amy, is kind of a mix of city, school,
Yeah.
community use, recreation. Thank you. So I could consider it kind of like we did with roads this last fall on just this is a critical need that's been kind of left behind for a few years. Let's consider this. I know Sarah is also working on updating the SIP, so maybe Amy, we can connect you to as well to really bring that as part of the budget cycle and what that would mean. We are falling off by a bit of debt service next year, but we have to feather back in. That's probably the year that the debt service is going to hit on the roads for the first year, so always keeping an eye on that debt service amount. But the track seems pretty critical, and let's make sure it's part of this process.
What's the third and third?
So one of the things we had talked about at one point was the school doing a third, city doing a third, and then trying to privately raise the other
Oh, okay.
third. If you did that, or we do a split.
I'm highly supportive of that piece. I think not just to minimize the taxpayer impact, but it's an aspect, I think, in Ellsworth that we haven't, gone whole hog in yet. I haven't seen that private funding component at scale, and, I have a history in fundraising. I've made those calls. I know Amy and I both talked about, we're happy to kind of get our call list together, and these seemed like was it the Elks, or was it who did the fundraising for the DeMeyer Field? That was,
Rotary.
The Rotary, sorry.
Yeah.
The Rotary, they had some great experience there. There's a lot of community here, I think, and a lot of private businesses. I was just looking at our kind of total residential versus commercial. We have a lot of folks here that might want to contribute to that project, so let's try and shake the trees a little bit too.
Yeah.
And does the county have, I think they have some sort of application process, maybe we can try to get some TIF funds?
TIF funds from the county.
Because I know they give some for different projects, I think.
Okay.
So,
Because we did try to go before the county, I don't know if you remember, so that the public knows. We did try to advocate for this being a community project to utilize COVID funds. And really, I thought had a strong case for it. Doesn't just affect the citizens of Ellsworth, but we have a lot of other organizations outside of Ellsworth and community members that use our track, and had letters of support, and they would not touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so, but TIF, we haven't looked into. So we can try that.
I'm not 100% sure that it would qualify, but I
Right.
think it would,
Beg the
benefit us
question.
to go and talk to them about it.
Okay.
Are there do any other school districts or communities in Hancock County have a functional track?
Yes. So MDI has a track also on their school property.
Of course they do, but
Yeah.
the rest of Hancock.
Sumner and GSA use our track.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And have letters of support from them. With the new school at Sumner High School, I'm not sure if a track was part of the scope of their construction or not. I will find out. But as you get towards the Class B schools in the Bangor area, they all do.
Yeah, yeah.
They all do. So, and that's one of the things we talk about a lot, is remaining competitive with other school districts that are like size as us for all kinds of things. Athletics, of course, being one of them. And we are dramatically behind with our athletic facilities, what we can offer in comparison to other Class B high schools in our area. Turf being one of the biggest things that I get hammered about all the time is why we haven't created a turf facility where our football field currently is. The track, and then even some of our outdoor bathrooms and things like that is we're very, very behind other schools.
What do, excuse me, what do private schools do, like John Babs? How do they handle it?
They utilize other communities' stuff. GSA is a letter, GSA wrote a letter because they bus their kids to Ellsworth to use our track for their outdoor track season. Private schools like that typically use a community track in the area or bus their kids. Yeah.
Or they charge $70,000 a year for students to go there and build tracks.
There's that too. And so right now, we have the lighting project as something in the school budget, a piece of it in the school budget, a piece of it through EMC, and then the reserve funding for that. That means us covering 100% of that cost. And I'm not sure it's 100% of our responsibility, but we have a plan to move forward on it, to execute it. And so kind of looking for your take on that. That project right now, estimates are about $230,000 to $300,000 for that project. If we go through the EMC Phase 2, it comes out of the local budget. Obviously, it hits our local budget through the payments in a year. But we would look to do a TELP again, like we did with Phase 1. And because of the energy efficiency savings we would gain from that, that could be a considered project through EMC. I think in the end, the school budget hits taxpayers too. So although I don't think it's 100% the school department's responsibility for the lights at the track, I think we all conceptually are okay with this makes sense to do it this way and fold it in to an energy efficiency project. We already have people ready to go and project managers. So, I mean, we're okay with doing that. We also have the $100,000 reserve that we could put towards it. So looking kind of to see, is there a general commitment? Obviously, it'll go through the budget process, but how do you feel about us at least tackling the light portion at this time?
I have a question.
Feel
on that.
okay?
Go ahead.
No, just
Thumbs
thumbs
up.
up
Yeah, thank you.
emoji.
Okay.
I just have a question about the light portion. Help me understand the soccer field, the field in the track.
Yeah,
Okay. That is okay and operational even if the track isn't?
yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So, and that's a big need for the lights?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
And does the installation of lights affect the installation of a track?
Right. So we've
I'm
talked
asking.
about that and asking contractors, because that's something we were like, if we do the lights first and then they come in and demo the track.
Yeah.
The poles are outside of the fenced area in the track. So contractors have told us they believe that that should not be a problem. So it shouldn't offset that, no.
Is it just the lights themselves, or do you need new poles as well?
So right now, we believe, we've had several people look at it over the course of the last few years. One person said, you should probably get new poles. Everyone else has said, you can utilize existing poles going with LED lights. So the current estimate that we have for that $240,000 is using existing poles. The other option that's been talked about, and until EMC really digs into it and starts really project managing, right now we have 6 poles there. There are some proposals that say you could get away with adequate lighting with LED lights with 4, with utilizing only 4 poles. But then looking at what's the cost of doing that and offsetting that removal. So we would be looking at that as part of the scope of the project. If we can find cost savings going from 6 to 4 and still safely adequately light the field, then we would certainly do that as well.
And the people that are doing the lighting are giving you this information, or the people that would do the excavation giving you that information?
The lighting, the people that are
Lighting is
responsible for the
saying-
poles.
The lighting people are saying that it won't affect the construction, but we haven't asked the people that are doing the construction.
I can check with Josh. I think it has gone both ways. I think that conversation has been reciprocated
That's
both
just
ways.
A question that
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
'cause if the electrician says, oh, no, that won't affect anything, and the guy shows up with the excavator and
Yes.
says, what the hell were they talking about?
Yes,
You know,
right. No, we're
That's
gonna,
my,
that's the nice thing about EMC. We get, as part of the scope of the TELP, we have a project manager, and they would work with my facilities person, my athletic director, and those are the kinds of conversations that would happen well in advance
it's
of
not coming from
anything.
just the light people.
Correct. Yeah, we would ensure that, for sure. So as part of our budget proposal, then, when we come forward, we will include the light portion of the project and kind of start moving forward with that. And if push comes to shove and we need to remove it, it's going to be no harm, no foul. But we are going to move forward with a Phase 2 TELP proposal that will come to council also. And part of that will include the lighting project of the track. And I think that's the smart way to go, to be honest with you.
What's the match on the TELP?
I'd have to look. He's breaking down numbers right now. He's going to propose something to the board on Monday at our facilities committee. But it's TELP 1 was very reasonable. But we'll bring all of that to you guys for approval, for sure. But we have found what's nice about the TELP process. It's the first time I've done it. The amount of projects we got done this summer through the TELP 1, we never would have been able to do that through putting each project into the local budget. Having that payment alone and accomplishing the amount of work that we did has dramatically improved the schools. And so a lot of school systems statewide are looking to do it this way now because it just makes more sense. That's all I got this morning, and I'll be back in 2 weeks.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Great. My last update is on the road bids. We had a couple conversations with the counselors about the process. I know Mike was here at the last city council meeting to talk about that there was some confusion over length of roads with some of the bidder submissions. I've been thinking long and hard about this, and, after some due consideration, I think we're going to make it cleaner for all of this, just put it back out to bid. And send it back out to bid. We'll do it quick. We're still going to try and get in the March meeting. Obviously, priority 1 is, we've authorized up to $2 million in roads and band funding. We have the financing all figured out. We've got some great bidders that have already submitted, but we need to iron out some of those details, so we'll put it back out to bid quickly. We'll probably have next week have a public information session with any bidders that have information that they want to dial in, any other questions. If it's not perfectly clear in this time around, some of those details that were missing last time, council will obviously send out information regarding that, and then go quickly to an open bid process again. I think we can still get that before the March meeting. So if we can't get quite to the March meeting, it's already on the agenda. We've already public hearinged it, so that should still line us up for that timeframe. If worse came to worse, we could call an emergency meeting shortly thereafter to consider the bids. But I think it's probably the best for the process. So That's kind of where I'm at.
One of my requests on that would be, I guess last time I was told that there was 5 contractors that received an RFP, whatever. Is there when that comes to the council, whenever it does, I would like to see all of the 5 prices, if they all give. Last time I was told they only give 2. Prior to Mike, when Lisa was here, she'd come forward with just the price that she wanted to present, and I want to see all of it.
Oh, I don't even think that's,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's the
I wanna
best
see
way,
all
so-
of the prices.
We
I'd
can-
also like to be present for the bid opening,
yep.
because this situation that we have right now, I've received 7 phone calls about people wound up about it. And I don't even know what it looked like. We have nothing to work with. I don't know what the request was.
Oh, it's online. Just Google Ellsworth RFP local roads. It'll come right up. It's on the website. So the bid's out there still, and but we're gonna rebid. I'll send you the link to that. The other piece of this is, to your point taken, I think to clarify, we post it online, publicize that it's out there, but then also do the due diligence of actually reaching out to the majors. So that's the 5 people we reached out to. There was conversations with those in the end to bid, but there's some discrepancies on lengths that seem to be the particulars that they're basically in some ways bidding on different things. So it was hard to make the final choice based on some of those pricing things. So I think and Mike was very public about that. It's our mistake. It's actually in the procurement process, that it acknowledges that the city can make a mistake and allows somebody to modify a bid. But after considering this a little more, while we could go that route still of having the 2 there, it's probably best just to re-put it out there. We're pretty close and go this route. And whether both the public bidding process will, it was a public event here. We'll do that again once the bids come in, but also the bid clarification kind of information seminar we'll have with it. Happy to have folks on that as well.
I'd like to just see the bid opening. I would like to attend all of those bid openings, not just this one. but-
Yeah, I think they're usually posted or.
They're posted,
yeah,
yep, posted
they're
online.
public,
It's on the website, bid opening this time, this day. So again, communications channels, we just had a communications meeting on, some people get it on Facebook, some people get it on email here, some people get on this, and how do we get better at
It wouldn't be a
these channels?
crime for the council to get an email
Yep.
from the city administration making us aware of that.
So I think the process should have been handled a little differently. I think that Mike should not have probably gotten up there and talked about it. When you table something, just table it. Don't explain the reason why. You could have briefly said, no, we need to look at the bids.
Sure.
Maybe brought it to finance committee to kind of discuss that a little bit. And I would have made the recommendation to reject all bids, because when you start doing these sorts of negotiations, I feel like it loses the integrity of our bidding process.
Sure.
So I think that's kind of where there were some issues that.
That's why the phones are ringing.
Yeah, and I would say, and that probably would have eliminated all your phone calls, so just, and you know what, I should have stopped it at that meeting when it happened.
100%. I think, as you mentioned, Steve, last time, that glad Mike, acknowledged the mistake, that we could have gotten better. It's actually in the procurement that this happens.
I have no problem with the error, and I admire him taking responsibility for his. I mean, hey, we all make mistakes. I mean, I've got a string of them behind me a long ways.
Absolutely. So, I'll make follow-up calls to the bidders as well. I did talk to Mike on and I think it's okay that I do that, just to let them know, just apologize that, because the 2 that actually submitted too, they did due diligence, they put a lot of work into those. I do feel bad that they kind of went to this process and due to the city's mistake, they're going to kind of have to have another crack at it. So I'll make calls to those 2 bidders who submitted that we're going out to bid. I apologize, but we're going to move fast. We'll get it next week. We'll have it out there with some of this length of the roads. That was really where it was at. Some bidders bid on different pieces, so that's standardized. We'll have a public information session with any bidders that would like more information to clarify things, which I think that's in the procurement policy, just to make it a very clear and transparent process. And then we'll move pretty quickly to bid. It shouldn't take too long based on there's already been a lot of work on reaching out to folks, so this isn't a surprise. We haven't tried to keep this secret that we're putting roads out there, and it's no secret that we need to do roads around here. So that's become my laser focus too, is getting these bids done, so that come late April, or when the weather clears, so that it's pavable, we can be first on the docket with bidders to get these things paved.
So do you think we need to reject those bids in a public meeting? So I don't know what's the cleanest way to reject it during the next meeting and then having a special meeting, or can we have that same agenda item on the twice? Basically, reject all bids from this bid date, and then we can accept the bids from this date. Do you think that's,
Yeah, we
do you
can do
think
them
that'll
both at the
work?
same time.
Reject, so basically, we start clean, we're gonna kind of keep that other one, just, it was what it was.
Yeah, so we're
Because
gonna
I wouldn't want to,
reject
that's the
it.
one thing, I wouldn't want to hold up the process. Like, I want to be first
Yeah.
on the list for pavers this year before the main DOT projects start up in force, because we need those roads paved around here.
Yeah, let's get them back out to bid, and then at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
March meeting, we'll reject, and then
I hear what you're talking about, and I certainly agree with both of you I just want to be clear that you notify the two bidders immediately
Yep.
of what's going to take place.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
not-
we were planning on a meeting Monday, so
Okay.
I'm
As long as
notifying.
we're clear with that, finalize it later, but as long as we're clear with them.
Yeah, and notificate, so so we'll notify them, we're gonna go back out for a new RFP process. It's likely, although not certain, you guys may say we wanna reject the whole thing and go with the other process and accept those bids, but we'll likely reject at the meeting, but also be able to accept new bids. So we'll put it right back on the street almost immediately. Probably not till Monday, because I wanna take some good time. I know we know kind of the edits that need to be made to make it clear, but we'll probably repost Monday, have a public information session with potential bidders again next week, and then, based on the new bids that come in, we'll make sure that council's invited to the bid process, in addition to the posting online and all the other public notifications, which we do already, and then have that prepped for the city council meeting in March, so.
So Steve, I just have a question for you. So for all bids, are you just talking local road bids, or you're talking about all bids?
I
for the city,
want to
including
be
equipment
notified
and-
of all bid openings.
Okay.
That's, and I've already emailed Ebony about that, so she'll,
I want to be notified, I'd like to attend those, because the devil is always in the details.
So, if I can ask, so when a bid is open, I've never been to a bid opening.
Oh, it's riveting.
Yeah. So is it just that they're bid under seal, and then it's open, and we say, okay, we got 3 bids, and here are the 3 bids, and then that's it? Like, we don't then, nothing's then negotiated at those meetings, or is it like we become aware of who bid for what, and then,
and I could be wrong on the intent here, but I think this was, now there's public online postings of things, there's other, but, back in the day, it was paper only.
Yeah.
So to make sure that you're not having a backroom deal with somebody getting a piece of paper, and like, that seems to be part of that, we could have an online public bid opening essentially now, but that's the.
Yeah, and then you usually tell the participants, or just notes in general, that we need to review these. A lot of times we'll send it off, for like the really large projects, the engineers will be here, they'll take it and they'll do their comparisons, and even the local roads, you would do the comparisons to make sure, and I think this is where the error was found, was trying to do that comparison and realizing, oops, there's an issue here.
Right.
So,
This isn't apples to
Yeah,
apples.
this is basically just kind of the bid price, who bid on it, and I think it's also other contractors are
Kind of
trying to
come in
figure
there
out-
and see
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
And then usually if they're pretty close, you're like, all right, and then if you have somebody that's kind of an outlier, either really high or really low, that's when you're really good at kind of take a look at it.
But there's no, at the bid opening, it's just, okay, here are the bids, here's what they say, and then it goes to staff, or then it goes to our engineers to be like, the devil's in the details.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's when the
then they-
deliberation.
And then they come back, to us ultimately and saying, hey, or do we need to authorize the bid on anything over a certain amount?
15,000.
15,000, so anything over 15,000, basically then we come back with a recommendation, here's what we received, and I agree completely, I want to see all the numbers, and then, and we are picking this one for reasons A, B, and C.
But I think, Tammy, you've been to more than any of us here, but I think I think that everybody leaves that meeting with some assumptions and a lot of questions. And I think that's important, that, you know, there's a great opportunity for the city to learn from the feedback from the contractors, you know? There's, isn't that not true?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely,
you can
and-
gain a lot of knowledge just from getting their feedback.
Yeah, I think the, at least in a reread of the procurement policy relative to this too, it's, you know, it's specifically mentioned there too, the information sessions prior to the, so that people can dial those things in. And those were held before too, Mike, you know, before the bid went out, we did get questions, but it was really clear that once the bids actually came in, that there was, but to your point too, Tammy, the proper process next time is probably not just city council meeting, tabling, just that's where it's at, come to the finance committee meeting if it were to happen again. But hopefully we can dial in this process a lot better, so that that's just, you know, it's, we don't have this issue happen again.
So
We're gonna
also-
make
oh,
mistakes, but we need to be fair about our mistakes.
Yeah. And also typically if you have a couple of different contractors kind of asking the same questions and creating a request for information, that's when you put an addendum out on your bid process.
Gotcha.
So those are other things that you can use to try to make sure, and then everybody receives that addendum.
Yeah, and I apologize, Mike had a very important meeting at 8:30, or else he would have tried to be here for the whole time, but we wanted to get Amy in first. And
Yeah,
everyone, so-
absolutely. So I actually have to leave in just a couple of minutes, so I didn't want to.
Nate,
We have a
any,
member of the public that's interested in speaking? Yes, sir? You must go to the podium and state your name, though.
And your favorite color.
Right. My name's Roger Gilly, resident of Ellsworth. My concerns are with the spending of the city. It recently brought to my attention, we have numerous lawsuits going out to public, to the people of the city of Ellsworth. I was looking through some of the paperwork and trying to look at the rules and laws within the city. It seems we have one office that really, he has nobody to go to, I guess. He's, you know, he can pretty much do whatever he wants to do. So I asked a couple people, you know, that used to be on city council, when we talk about lawsuits, you know, before there's a lawsuit brought, is it in front of the city council? Does the city council or anybody else sit down and say, is this worth suing somebody over? Do they have rights here? Do we have facts? Do we have a fact, you know, why we're suing somebody? You know, and me being one of them, part of the lawsuit is I sell 15 to 25 cars a year at my residence. It's not true. It's recorded by the state. If you sell a vehicle, there's a bill of sale. There's not a bill of sale. I love vehicles. I have a bunch. Most are registered. I have 14 registered. I went to code. I said, I have 14 vehicles registered. Why do you have so many registered? Why does it matter? Well, you can't drive them all. Nope, sure not. You know, 25 miles on one. But it's my right.
I have a question when you're done.
All right, so, and then I try to watch the council meetings and stuff like this. I see that we bought a bucket truck. Mike Harris stood up here and said, it could be used for the streetlights. Jason Ingalls got up here and said, we don't want to use it for the streetlights, it doesn't work for us. So we bought a truck that's not, I guess licensed, to, you know, it has to meet a certain criteria to be able to be used. It's not done yet. We don't have anybody yet to legally get in it and use the truck. They're working towards getting their arborist license, but we bought a truck to do tree service when we can't fix our roads. We had an excavator. We sold our excavator. I think it was like $14,000-$16,000 the town sold their excavator. We sold it because we didn't have anybody qualified to use it, and they wore out an excavator within a few years. You know, excavators have a long life. I have a 1979 loader, still works to this day, starts up early. The other day, started up, hadn't been started in 6 months. So we've been spending, I think, $36,000 a year to rent an excavator. We owned one. We sold it because we didn't have a mechanic. We're buying stuff because we don't have a mechanic. I've made this comment to Steve a time or two. You're trying to fix the track. Now, the easiest way to fix a track, we could save $100,000. Put our school buses back out at the city garage where they belong. They were always inside. My dad was a mechanic there for years. I grew up at the city garage. All year, we've had bus 17, this bus, that bus, can't make it because it's broke down, it's cold. Our repair bills on our buses right now are crazy. When they were at the city garage, they were heated. We have no more employees at our city garage than we did probably in 1978, 1980. There's no reason why those buses can't go back there in a heated garage where they split the heat bill between the school department and the highway department. There's multiple reasons. We are allowing the city department to, the highway department to renovate their own bathroom. $25,000. Seems pretty high to me. Who comes up with these numbers at $25,000? I'm a builder. I could build you 4 of them bathrooms for $25,000 that they need. So I guess what I don't understand is, we got people in the city that just throw numbers out and our board is too eager to just say yes. Instead of trying to figure out why it's $25,000. Are any of these people that work for the city qualified at the highway department to remodel a bathroom? And what's not getting fixed on the side of the road or what's not getting done while they're all in there trying to remodel a bathroom? I really think that we got plenty of local qualified people here in the city to do plenty of work. We have local people that do tree service. If it's one tree, if it's 10 trees or 100 trees, wouldn't it be easier just to pay somebody to go take care of it than, spend all this money and have to service another truck and do this and do that instead of doing what we need to do to keep our city, moving forward. We're told that we have no mechanics at our city department. All of our plow trucks are being fixed in-house, in the wintertime by our guys that drive the trucks. Now, why couldn't they fix the excavator? We're giving stuff away. When we had open to the bids, when we sold the city equipment, they sold the backhoe, the John Deere backhoe last year. I want to say it was, $1,200, $1,600 they sold this backhoe for. We took the backhoe, the guy that bought the backhoe took the backhoe to the auction and sold it for $17,000. We're selling our police cars, out there for $3,000, $4,000. I've been to the auction. They're getting $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for these police cars. Why are we, we can't find a local car dealer that we can make a deal with. We'll give you $1,000, take our vehicle to the auction for us, and let's sell it that way. There's many questions, many reasons I'm here. For one, I just wanted to make it known that, I'm thinking right now, I was told about 10 different lawsuits right now obtaining to the city of Ellsworth, trying to sue the residents, me being one of them. They're trying to sue one. They took his permits away. He cut too many trees, did this, did that. DEP's been back on his property and gave him a clear bill to go again once he is, cleared by the city. So I really think that in many ways, the government of Ellsworth is really overstepping their boundaries. We see this with like the porta potty. A portable potty is bought at Walmart. Ben Ray some businesses had to relocate. Some businesses had to close down because they were renting a chemical potty, and they were told that they had to get rid of them when they're a chemical potty, but provided by Ray Plumbing. But they were told that they were porta potties, and they're not. So I guess what I'm saying is the city of Ellsworth, the government in Ellsworth is spending way too much money, overstepping where it's not needed. And there's many ways to fix a lot of things if you communicate. But there's no communication. Like at my residence, I've been here, I've talked to Charlie, I've talked to Mr. O'Halloran, some other people. I'm being sued by the city that has never stepped foot on my property since the new code enforcement officer has taken his job. He told me that he's going by a book of papers that Lori had left to him of who to watch and who to look for. And as far as I'm concerned, he's stuck on this piece of paper. Instead of doing his own job, he's going by whatever is being brought forth to him in this paperwork that was left by Lori. So I really think that we're losing money, and I would hate to see that the city is trying to sue somebody that they're gonna lose their case over. And it's just gonna cost, more money, because, we can spend $25,000 on lawyer fees, I'm guessing right now that probably, last year, I'm guessing it was like $400,000, somewhere in there, that the city spent in lawyer fees, which seems pretty high to me. I understand that, the city needs a lawyer. I don't know about $400,000 worth of lawyer fees, but I'm guessing, I got a pamphlet like this thick. It costs a lot of money to get that written up by a lawyer. So, any questions?
This drove one question
Yep.
from me. I know it's painful to get up there and speak, and I'm glad that you're getting up there and speaking. My question is this: is there a process in the city that decides who gets legal action for enforcement and who doesn't? Or how is that decided? He asked that question, and I guess that drove my question. Who decides that?
Are we in court, or did you receive a notice of violation?
No, I have 20 days to reply back to the city if I'm going to fight it, or if I'm just going to take a $400 loss per day fine since September 12th.
So typically, as I understand it, our enforcement office, they send these letters out if they believe there's a violation. If the enforcement office and the property owner can't resolve the issue, then they come to the council, and we would then determine whether or not to initiate a lawsuit. So.
Well, we've already gone above and beyond that now.
But, is there a pending lawsuit in the Maine District Court against this gentleman?
I have paperwork from the court, yes. I have 20 days to reply whether I'm going to fight it or not. The other problem is, the deal that I had with a previous code enforcement officer, because roles have changed. Now the rules change. And they don't, so the code enforcement officer now has no clue to what was previously talked about, what was previously done. At my property, nothing has changed. They give me a business license. The first thing I was told, I'm taking your business license away from you. I said, good luck. He never asked what was once talked about before I got my business license. Nothing has changed since I got my business license. And before I got my business license, the code enforcement officer at the time had come to my property, looked it all over, and then we come back down here and I got my business license. What was done was, I was told, because I have a lift at my residence to working on my own vehicles, and the lift was outside at the time, that I was a shop. And for 2 years, I went back and forth with the tax collection and with code enforcement. For 2 years, those two guys were fighting upstairs. You're not charging him, you're charging him. You're not charging him, you're not charging him. Then what was done was I was granted a license. So in 2021, I received my license after fighting with the city back and forth for 2 years. Then times changed. We have new people in town. And now it's, well, you're not compliant. Well, I was compliant when I got my license and nothing changed.
So, sorry to interrupt, and, appreciate you bringing this to the finance committee. This is the finance committee, so
Right.
it's supposed to be finance
And
related,
that's
so.
what I'm
yeah.
about spending money is what I'm.
Yeah, no, and that's heard loud and clear, and thank you for your comments. As far as if there is a pending lawsuit against you, sir, I'm not aware of it, and we can't
Right.
we can't discuss that in public.
Right.
But I think the question raised is, what is the process for the city to initiate a lawsuit such as this? I'm not 100% sure what the city of Ellsworth's process is, and I think I'd like to know more about it.
Yeah.
That's why, if I could interrupt, when he said that, I'm like, all right, so what is that process? Does one person make that decision, or is this like a police ticket where a police officer can decide which speeding car on High Street gets picked out? Or is there a process in the city that you decide the values if it can't be worked out?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to, we're getting close on time, and I do have a
I
pretty.
understand, but he brought up a good, outside of the finance numbers,
So
that
I'll-
triggered with me. What
Yeah,
is?
I'll review the process piece, coming back on those, because we established a violator enforcement fund in the code enforcement office, I think, a year ago with Lori, our previous code enforcement officer, because a lot of these things were happening more and more, where we didn't have the legal teeth to enforce because it wasn't budgeted for. So now we do have that. I just went through it in the budget process on this. And we have also the lien process with our a tax collector. So there's a variety of these types of things that happen with, and again, I can't speak on some of the details here on this piece, but let me get back on the process just so.
Yeah, I think.
I'm
it'd
interested
be
in the
helpful.
process.
Yeah,
It doesn't sound
yeah,
like you are.
I think, well, it'd be good for us to know what our
And
process is.
yeah.
There's one piece of me that wants to kind of shoot from the hip here, and but let me.
Aside from his dollars that he's talking about.
I will say in some of
process.
the other pieces, I can't talk about that specific one, at least not yet. I want to do a little more research. I have talked with this gentleman before, but I also won't disclose that, because if it is bearing on those pieces, I wouldn't want to prejudice any future proceedings. The comment about 400,000 per year, and then Steve, I just gave you and I think I CC'd members of the media on our total legal spending over the last 3 years. I
3 years, I don't remember what it was.
think the total was well under, that, we're not spending nearly that per year. Other piece.
Well, as I recall, it was like 470-some thousand over 3 years.
Over 3 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah,
Yeah.
so, there's that piece that was inaccurate, but the highway garage, the 25,000 for, it wasn't just for the bathrooms, it was for locker rooms. I just got a quote of around 100,000 for a new kitchen, a tiny one, which I'm gonna have to reject, because I'm trying to think of how I can possibly build that. The highway garage folks also have built a good bulk of that facility for 14 guys for a tiny little bathroom before. I think we talked in detail at council at that.
So when will you get back to us on the actual process of?
Next finance committee
Okay,
meeting.
all
The
right.
bucket truck as well on that piece. It's been used many, many, many times already. And while it wasn't specific for all of our needs, as we discussed at length in the last council meeting when the council approved that bucket truck, that other type, it has already enabled us to not have to rent the truck for a variety of purposes. And I actually think there was, so that one has been money well spent. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I know it's no fun for you to speak. Okay, so next Friday.